Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me. Because there is a kind of realization that doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives with quiet. It arrives late at night. It arrives in the empty space where someone expected you to still be. It arrives when the noise of their life settles, when distractions stop working, when their pride can no longer protect them from the truth. And the truth is this: they misjudged you, not because you weren't enough, but because they never took you seriously while you were still giving them access to your heart. They misjudged the depth of your loyalty, the steadiness of your presence, the way you showed up without needing to be begged. They misjudged the kind of love you offered, the kind that doesn't come with conditions, the kind that tries to understand, the kind that gives people room to grow. And because you were so consistent, they started to believe you were permanent. Because you were so forgiving, they started to believe you had no limits. Because you loved with a full heart, they started to believe you would always carry the relationship for both of you. They didn't say it out loud. They didn't even think they were doing it, but they treated your love like a resource, like something that would always be there, like sunlight, like air, like something that doesn't run out. And then you left, not with drama, not with 1,000 messages, not with a performance, but with quiet clarity. You stopped explaining to someone who kept choosing not to understand. You stopped making excuses for behavior that kept hurting you. You stopped trying to convince someone to value what they were already receiving. And in that moment, something changed for them. Because when your presence disappeared, the comfort they were living in disappeared with it. Suddenly they had to sit with what your love used to cover, the loneliness they kept avoiding, the emptiness they kept distracting themselves from the consequences of always keeping one foot out the door. Because when you were there, you softened their life. You gave them warmth. You gave them emotional certainty even when they were inconsistent. You gave them a sense of being cared for, even when they didn't know how to care back in the same way. And they got used to that. Not in a villain way, not always in a calculated way, but in a human way. The way people get used to comfort and stop recognizing it as a gift. The way people stop appreciating the thing that makes their life easier until the day it's gone. So now they're realizing they misjudged you. They're remembering the details they ignored. The messages you sent when you didn't have to. The patience you had when they were distant. The way you stayed calm while your heart was breaking. The way you tried to make it work without making them feel guilty. They're remembering how safe you were, how steady you were, how rare it is to find someone who loves with both tenderness and loyalty. And it is hitting them not as romance at first, but as reality. Because reality has weight. Reality doesn't flirt. Reality doesn't tease. Reality sits you down and says, you lost something valuable and it's your fault. And I need you to hear this part because it matters. They didn't wake up because you begged. They didn't wake up because you argued your worth. They didn't wake up because you proved yourself. They woke up because your absence became louder than your love. They woke up because the version of you that always made space for them is no longer available. They woke up because the pattern stopped working. They pulled away and you didn't chase. They went quiet and you didn't feel the silence. They expected the old dance, the push and pull, the confusion, the let's talk, the please, just tell me. But instead, they met something they weren't prepared for, your self-respect. And when someone realizes they misjudged you, the first emotion is often panic. Not the romantic kind of panic people post about, but the quiet panic of losing control because they thought you'd be an option. They thought you'd be available. They thought they could return whenever it suited them and you would still be open, still soft, still ready to restart. And now they are realizing that you are not a door they can open whenever they feel lonely. You are a person. You are a heart. You are time. You are trust. And trust doesn't wait forever. So yes, they may come back. They may come back with careful words. They may come back saying they've been thinking. They may come back acting like they finally see you. And that can feel like validation because deep down part of you wanted to be seen by them, wanted them to finally understand what they had. But listen to me, the fact that they misjudged you does not mean you have to re-enter the same story. Their realization is not your responsibility to reward. Their regret is not a contract you must sign. Their return is not automatically a win. It is simply information. It is proof that your value was real. But it is also proof that you cannot afford to be misjudged again. Because the version of you that they left behind, the version that stayed too long, the version that kept forgiving without repair, the version that kept hoping without standards, that version is not who you are now. You are different now. You have learned what it costs to love someone who only meets you halfway. You have learned how heavy it is to carry a relationship alone. You have learned that your softness must be protected, not offered to someone who treats it like it's unlimited. So if they truly realize they misjudged you, they will not only say it, they will show it. They will be consistent, not just emotional. They will be accountable, not just nostalgic. They will be patient with your healing, not offended by your boundaries. They will understand that your love is not something they can step back into without rebuilding trust. And if they cannot do that, if they return with words but no change, if they return with sweetness but no stability, then they haven't truly realized your value. They've only realized your absence. Ladies and gentlemen, let this be the moment you stop measuring your worth by who finally misses you and start measuring your worth by what you refuse to tolerate. Let their realization be real, but let your standards be realer, because you are not here to be appreciated only after you are gone. You are here to be cherished while you are present, and from this moment on, you only allow the kind of love that recognizes you fully, respects you deeply, and chooses you consistently. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me. Because when someone comes back, it can feel like the universe finally answered you, like the story is about to turn into the ending you always hoped for. They show up softer, they sound more careful, they say the words you once waited for, and your heart after being starved starts to believe that this must be a victory. But I need you to hear this clearly. Them coming back is not automatically your win, it is your test, because not every return is love and not every opportunity is safe. See, when a person misjudged you, they didn't just underestimate your value, they underestimated your boundaries. They underestimated how many nights you cried quietly. They underestimated how many times you forgave what should have been repaired. They underestimated how long you held the connection together with your own hands. And the reason their return feels so powerful is because you remember what it cost to be abandoned emotionally while still staying loyal. You remember what it felt like to wait for consistency like it was a gift. You remember how you made excuses for silence, how you turned distance into they're just stressed, how you tried to be easy so they wouldn't leave. So when they return, your nervous system can mistake relief for love. It can mistake attention for healing. It can mistake a few sweet words for real change. But you have to be stronger than your relief. You have to be wiser than your longing. Because this is what happens so often. Someone returns not because they have grown, but because they miss the access they used to have. They miss your warmth. They miss your loyalty. They miss how you made them feel important without demanding much in return. They miss the comfort of knowing you cared even when they weren't showing up. And that's not necessarily evil. Sometimes it's just human, but it is not enough for you to build your life on. Missing you is not the same as choosing you. And wanting you back is not the same as being ready to love you properly. So this is where your standards become your protection. You don't need to punish. You don't need to play games. You don't need to pretend you don't care. You simply need to hold the line that your heart learned the hard way. Because the truth is your love is expensive. Not in money, in trust, in time, in vulnerability, in the way you open your life to someone and make space for them. And if they want to come back into that space, they do not get to enter with nostalgia. They enter with accountability. They do not get to enter with charm. They enter with consistency. They do not get to enter with a speech. They enter with behavior. And here's how you know the difference between a real opportunity and a familiar trap. A real opportunity doesn't rush you. A trap pushes for quick forgiveness. A real opportunity respects your boundaries. A trap gets offended by them. A real opportunity asks, "What do you need to feel safe with me again?" A trap says, "Why can't you just let the past go?" A real opportunity owns the damage. A trap minimizes it. A real opportunity is patient with the rebuilding. A trap wants access without the work. And you, if you have been through that cycle, you have to stop being impressed by words and start being loyal to patterns. Because if the past taught you anything, it taught you that chemistry can be strong and still be unhealthy. It taught you that desire can be real and still not be safe. It taught you that someone can care and still not show up. And this is the moment where you decide what kind of love you will accept. Not the kind of love that appears when they feel lonely, not the kind of love that shows up when they sense you moving on, not the kind of love that comes back only when your absence finally becomes uncomfortable. You deserve the kind of love that remains, that grows, that chooses you on ordinary days, not just emotional ones. So if they come back with an opportunity, you receive it with calm, not chaos. You receive it with clarity, not desperation. You don't collapse into the old role, the role that makes everything easy for them, the role that forgives too quickly, the role that accepts vague promises, the role that sacrifices your peace to keep them close. You stay grounded. You listen, but you watch. You don't just ask, "Do you miss me?" You ask, "What has changed?" You don't just accept an apology. You require a plan. You don't just hear intentions. You look for actions, because actions are the only language that heals trust. And I want you to understand, holding standards does not mean you are cold. It means you are finally warm toward yourself. It means you are finally protecting the part of you that kept getting hurt. It means you are finally refusing to be misjudged again. Because being misjudged is painful, not because it bruises your ego, but because it makes you question yourself. It makes you feel unseen. It makes you wonder if you asked for too much when you were only asking for the basics. So when they return, this is your moment to rewrite the story, not by begging them to love you, but by choosing what happens next. Ladies and gentlemen, your power is not in how easily you can pull someone back. Your power is in your ability to choose what kind of access your life allows. Your power is in being able to say, "I care about you," while also saying, "I won't go back to the old version of this." Your power is in knowing that your peace is not something you gamble for potential. And if they truly want a new chapter, they will meet you there with effort, with humility, with consistency, and with the kind of love that makes your heart feel safe, not anxious. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me. Because the strongest power you will ever have is not the power to make someone come back. It's the power to decide what happens when they do. And that is a very different kind of strength. It's not loud strength. It's not dramatic strength. It's the quiet strength of a person who has learned through pain, through waiting, through hoping, through disappointment, that love is not something you chase. Love is something you choose. And you only choose it when it chooses you back with consistency. For a long time, your heart was running on one question: why don't they see me? Why don't they understand what I'm offering? Why do they pull away when I'm only trying to love them? And you tried everything. You tried being softer. You tried being calmer. You tried being patient. You tried being low maintenance. You tried not to ask for too much. You tried to show them you were safe. And still you kept finding yourself in the same place, staring at silence, reading between lines, waiting for effort like it was a miracle. But what you didn't realize is that you were giving away your power every time you made their choice more important than your standards. And then something shifted. You stopped trying to be chosen by someone who only reached for you when it was convenient. You stopped auditioning for love. You stopped negotiating your needs into something small enough for them to tolerate. You started to understand a truth that changes everything. You don't need someone to recognize your worth for you to live like you have it. You don't need their validation to hold your head high. You don't need their return to feel complete. And when you finally reach that place, it does something to your energy. It makes you calmer. It makes you clearer. It makes you unshakable. It makes you the kind of person who can say, "I care," without also saying, "Please choose me." So when they come back, and they will often come back when they feel your absence, when they sense you moving on, when the comfort of your availability is gone, this is not the moment you collapse into relief. This is the moment you stand in your power. Because your power is not in attracting them, your power is in choosing what you allow. Your power is in understanding that access to you is a privilege, not a right. Your power is in knowing that your heart is not a waiting room for someone else's readiness. And that means you don't just get excited about the message. You look at the meaning behind it. You don't just hear, "I miss you." You ask, "What changed?" You don't just hear, "I wasn't ready." You ask, "What are you ready to do now?" You don't just hear, "I want another chance." You ask, what would you do differently, consistently, not for a week, not for a month, but as a new way of being? Because anyone can be emotional in a moment. Anyone can feel regret when they're lonely. Anyone can say the right thing when they fear losing you. But real change is quiet. Real change is steady. Real change is consistent even when no one is watching. And I need you to understand something. Choosing your standards does not mean you stop loving. It means you stop sacrificing. It means you stop bleeding to prove you care. It means you stop rewarding inconsistency with access. Because if your past has taught you anything, it's that quick reconnection without repair becomes a loop. It becomes the same story with a different beginning. You feel the rush, you feel the hope, you feel the maybe this time. And then slowly the old pattern returns. The distance returns. The silence returns. The uncertainty returns. And you find yourself smaller again, quieter again, anxious again. So this time you don't restart the story just because your heart wants comfort. You protect your future even if your present misses them. Because love that is meant for you will not be threatened by your standards. Love that is meant for you will not be offended by your boundaries. Love that is meant for you will not require you to shrink in order to be kept. A person who truly wants you, truly values you, will not ask you to abandon what you learned. They will respect it. They will lean into it. They will understand that your standards are not punishment. They are the proof that you finally know your worth. They will show you that they are not here to repeat the past. They are here to build something new, something safe, something consistent, something real. And if they can't do that, if they get impatient with your healing, if they become defensive when you ask for clarity, if they try to rush you into forgiveness, if they want closeness without accountability, then you have your answer. Not because they are evil, not because they don't feel anything, but because they are not ready to love you the way you deserve. And the most powerful thing you can do in that moment is not to argue, not to convince, not to plead, but to choose yourself without hate, to walk away without drama, to say, I care, but I won't go back. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to stop treating their return like destiny and start treating it like a decision point, a doorway, a test of your growth, because you are not the same person who is willing to accept half love. You are not the same person who was willing to stay in confusion just to feel close. You are not the same person who kept hoping without evidence. You are the person who learned that love should feel like safety, not anxiety. You are the person who learned that consistency is the bare minimum, not the reward. You are the person who learned that your peace is sacred. So yes, they may come back with an opportunity, but the real opportunity is yours. The opportunity to choose a healthier chapter. The opportunity to require what you need without apologizing. The opportunity to say, if you want me, show me, and mean it. The opportunity to honor the love you once gave away too easily by now giving it wisely, slowly, and only to someone who meets it with the same seriousness. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me, because this is the moment where most people get hypnotized by emotion and accidentally walk back into the same pain wearing a new outfit. When someone returns after misjudging you, it feels like the universe finally balanced the scales. It feels like justice. It feels like validation. It feels like, see, I wasn't crazy. I wasn't too much. I wasn't asking for the impossible. And that feeling is real. It's powerful. It's human. But I need you to hold something even stronger than that feeling: your standards, your clarity, and your self-respect. Because what happens next will decide whether this is a new chapter or the same cycle with better words. Here's the truth. If they return with words only, it's a loop. It's the same old pattern, just dressed up in sweeter language. It's nostalgia. It's regret. It's loneliness. It's the discomfort of your absence. And those things can create very convincing speeches. A person can say, I miss you, and still miss the way you made them feel without being willing to carry what you need. A person can say, I realized I was wrong, and still not be ready to do the steady work of showing up when the feelings are not dramatic. A person can cry, apologize, even promise, and still repeat the same behavior the moment they feel pressured, the moment they feel vulnerable, the moment real closeness asks them to grow. Words can be beautiful, but words are cheap when they don't come with change. So you have to learn the difference between a return that is emotional and a return that is transformational. Emotional returns are intense and fast. They come with a rush. They come with, I can't stop thinking about you. They come with, I've changed. They come with, let's start over. And if your heart has been starving, that rush feels like food. It feels like safety. It feels like love. But transformational returns are slower. They come with humility. They come with accountability. They come with patience. They come with a willingness to rebuild trust brick by brick. Not because it's romantic, but because it's right. Transformational returns don't demand immediate access. They don't act offended when you're cautious. They don't rush your healing. They don't ask you to forget what you learned. They respect what you learned. And this is where your power lives. You get to decide what you allow, not based on how much you miss them, but based on what you know, because you know what it felt like to be misjudged. You know what it felt like to offer a heart and get uncertainty back. You know what it felt like to wait for replies like they were proof of your worth. You know what it felt like to be the one who kept the emotional lights on while the other person kept turning them off. So this time you don't just listen to what they say. You watch what they do. You watch whether they are consistent when you're not available. You watch whether they communicate when things are calm, not only when they fear losing you. You watch whether they take responsibility without blaming you for having needs. You watch whether they make space for your boundaries instead of trying to negotiate them down. Because if they truly want a new chapter, they will not try to slide back into your life as if nothing happened. They will understand that something did happen and it cost you. It cost you peace. It cost you sleep. It cost you confidence. It cost you trust. And they will treat that cost with respect. They will ask, what do you need from me? They will not say, why are you acting like this? They will offer clarity. not confusion. They will offer action, not speeches. They will show up when it's inconvenient, not only when it's emotionally intense. They will rebuild the foundation, not just repaint the walls. And I want you to hear this with tenderness. You are allowed to want them back. You are allowed to miss them. You are allowed to feel your heart soften when they finally say the words you waited for. But missing someone is not a reason to abandon yourself again. Wanting a happy ending is not a reason to ignore the lessons that got you here. Because the danger is not that they return. The danger is that you return to the version of you that accepted less just to feel chosen, the version of you that forgave too quickly, the version of you that restarted without repair, the version of you that called anxiety chemistry. That version of you was loving, yes, but that version of you was also unprotected, and love without protection becomes pain. So let your standards speak. Let your standards be calm. Let them be simple. Not threats, not drama, not punishment. Standards. I need consistency. I need communication. I need accountability. I need effort that lasts. And then watch. Watch whether they rise to it or retreat from it. Watch whether they respect it or resist it. Watch whether they show up steadily or disappear the moment they feel the weight of real intimacy. Because you are not here to be won back and then neglected again. You are not here to be someone's comfort when they feel lonely and their burden when you need clarity. You are here for mutual love, mutual effort, mutual responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, if they return with real change, then yes, it can be an opportunity not just for them but for you, an opportunity to love from strength, not fear, an opportunity to build something healthier, slower, safer. But if they return with words only, with charm only, with emotion only, then your opportunity is to choose yourself again, without anger, without bitterness, without needing to prove anything. Because the greatest victory is not that someone finally sees your value. The greatest victory is that you never again hand your value to someone who treats it like a temporary,